Hello, hello, hello. This is Elle Army. Welcome to Hippie in the City. I'm joined today by Ali Faccenda. Ali is a co-founder of clothing brand My Oh My Supply Co. and podcast Girls Talk Too Much. I love interviewing fellow podcasters. We get each other, and it feels so good to be seen. Ali wears so many hats in her businesses. She does design, PR and media relations, advertising, interviews, social media management, sales, and as if all that wasn't enough, she's a full-time writer for BuzzFeed. She's a true work hard, play hard Capricorn with a North Node in Sagittarius. She can't be stopped. Her articles on BuzzFeed are so funny, witty, and resourceful. I'm sure you've read her stuff, and maybe you just didn't know it. Ali's obsession with all things Disney led her to meeting her co-founder, Lindsay, as well as the foundation of all of their clothing designs. Please love, Ali. Hi, Ali. Welcome to Hippie in the City. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited to be meeting you on the internet.
I know. The internet is such like a amazing place, I feel like, to make connections with people that you otherwise wouldn't have met. So I was
Yeah.
excited when you messaged me.
Yeah, well, I love your brand and your content and the amount of things you're doing. Holy crap. It's like you must be the busiest woman in America. You and Oprah.
Only if I could make the amount of money Oprah makes, I'd be sold.
Well, you got a few years to catch up to Oprah, you know what I mean, in terms of age. So you've got plenty of time. I think if you keep at the pace you're going, you'll be there.
Yeah, maybe. I'll have to let her know if I meet her one day that you told me this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This prolific, wonderful spiritual guide told me that I would be like you one day. You
Yes.
tell Oprah.
I will.
Okay, so I want to start. Let's get a little bit about your background, where you're from. I know that you do so many things. But were you always freelance, or were you always your own boss, or how did your sort of entrepreneurial journey begin?
So I wasn't always my own boss. So I to answer I feel like first half of your question, I'm from New Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl, and I still currently live here. But I'm hoping to eventually relocate closer to the city, whether it's in the Hoboken, Jersey City area, or eventually into New York City, because I just feel like it's such a hub of so many amazing things, and so many things are located there. So it's kind of a place I feel like everybody wants to be. So I am in Jersey, so I'm an East Coaster, and my background, I went to college majored in English, and I wanted to be a teacher, actually. And I always, growing up, did too many things. I was the kid that was involved in way too many things, clubs, events, after-school activities. And I guess I've kind of just manifested that into my later life of continuing that lifestyle for myself. I changed my mind in college about my sophomore year that I didn't want to teach anymore because I wasn't in love with the direction that teaching was going in terms of, it was a lot different, I think, when we were in school, when we were younger to now, and how involved people's parents are and things like that, to a degree where I don't know if it was really something I loved anymore. So I continued majoring in English, and I actually picked up a minor in journalism. And through that, I was always a creative person. I was always super into art and that kind of stuff, but it was always more of a side hobby. I used to do like musicals. I was a big musical kid, and I danced and I sang, and uh, I did like the whole 9 yards of that. And then I always loved, art and drawing and photography and kind of like a little bit of everything. I feel like I've touched a lot of different sectors of art. And when I graduated school, I ended up going into marketing. I got a role in PR at a small boutique agency in New York City. And I only worked there for half a year, and then I quit because it was in a field that I liked. I liked the clients. It was beauty based, things like that, but I didn't love the atmosphere per se. It wasn't like the most positive in my opinion. So I met my co-owner Lindsay. We were Insta friends, and we kind of like talked about starting a business, and then I quit my job and I was like, okay, maybe we'll like try doing this. And it kind of worked from there. And we've moved forward and, built that brand out, and it's still, thriving. And it's an amazing thing to see that we built organically. And from that, I also started freelancing at BuzzFeed through somebody that I had met. And I was like, like I really want to, also have maybe a job that is more consistent with financials and things like that. Because when you run your own business, I think what a lot of people don't know is that your like paycheck isn't always guaranteed. You're kind of taking that risk here and there to not be guaranteed a strict salary all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't necessarily have health care or benefits. So I looked into BuzzFeed and I loved the people I met there, and I started freelancing with them last September. So I've been there for a year now. And then, yeah, my journey with them has kind of grown. I'm moving into a position with them that isn't freelance anymore. So I will be working with them full time, but also still running my business, which is really cool. So I've just kind of, I feel like, done so many things, and I do my art account on the side, and I love like Instagram and all that kind of stuff.
I love it. And how old are you, Allie?
I'm going to be 27 in January.
Nice. Oh my gosh. I'm having so many people on that are really, their businesses are really growing and they're like very successful, and they're all about like 26 to 28. It's like, it's very cool and very inspiring that so many young people, young women are like crushing it already. It's not like some kind of unattainable thing that you have to, you know, of course, it's always going to be work and an uphill battle and goals you want to crush and stuff like that. But um, it's really amazing and really inspiring that you can grow a brand. And I think with the access people have to the consumer and the customer through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, like all social channels, that you really can grow it a lot quicker than maybe in the past.
Absolutely. I think social media has been such a wonderful tool. I mean, obviously, there's like a downside to social media as well in terms of sucking a lot of our time. But I think it's also a really great place if you know how to utilize it in terms of finding things that inspire you, that don't make you feel bad about yourself, but things that inspire you. I think there's so many amazing people and brands and small businesses and individuals that you can find on especially Instagram that connect people like you and I were able to connect on Instagram. And I was able to meet my co-owner of my business on Instagram. And it's a really great way to build a brand as well, because everybody is easily accessible on one platform for the most part. And you can really, I think, do a lot more storytelling through Instagram with imagery and pictures, and the ability to contact and message people or comment on things. So I think I would agree with you. I feel like a lot of people in this age range tend to be self-starters in terms of being like, I'm going to take that risk when I'm, in this age range. So it's like, okay, if it doesn't succeed or I fail at it, then I have the rest of my life to do something else, as opposed to, I think, waiting until I'm in my like 50s and then regretting the choice that I was like, oh crap, I should have done that earlier on.
Yeah. Well, I think two things that really stood out to me about what you just said is that um, people in this age range, i.e., millennials for the most part, are self starters and starting their own businesses and taking those risks when, like, we are kind of have this awful uh,
Stereotype.
stereotype. There's the word. Yeah. Thank you for being lazy and self involved and self centered and like obsessed with ourselves. And the thing that one of the um, reasons that I started this podcast. And then also, I have written a script, a TV show about kind of a millennial woman who's finding herself and wanting to help restructure that stereotype. Because I just find that it's like absolutely not true. Like, if anything, I feel like the people that I know have 12 things going on instead of just one. And maybe it's not a like secure kind of fits neatly in a box that our parents can digest and understand. So maybe that's where they're getting it from. And they see us just on our phones and computers. And so they think like, oh, they're just playing around. Maybe they just don't get it. They're like, how can you make money on the internet?
Yeah.
When you're not doing something gross.
Yeah. I think it's like a generational divide in that regard, because I mean, I've been really lucky that my parents have been really supportive of like the choices that I've made in terms of being like, well, I don't want to work in corporate America. Like currently, I kind of want to try this. And they were really supportive. They're like, well, we'll support you. And like, we're obviously like not going to throw you out on the street and not like, let you try this if you want to. And they're like, if you fail, so what? Then like you do something else. And I agree with you. I think a lot of people are doing a billion things that tend to be our age. And specifically, like women in particular, I feel like I've really seen it. So many of the small like businesses and people that I support are ran by women. And I don't think that that's coincidental. I think that if anything, sometimes like corporate America isn't a place for women to feel like super comfortable or be like, okay, like I don't really feel like I fit here. And I think there's so much potential in seeing people, especially in quarantine, get really like innovative and come up with, starting something or working for themselves, because like life is not working, for a lot of people right now. So I think that it's people more than ever, and especially in our age range, are being really entrepreneurial and kind of like doing their own thing.
Yeah, and one of the main pillars of hippie in the city is getting to know what makes entrepreneurs tick, because there is like a different destiny, skill set to people that are entrepreneurs. It's almost like a religion, or it's almost like a destiny, or it's kind of has this really cool spiritual component where you're kind of like, you have to do it. Like, even some of the most intense entrepreneurs I've interviewed or talked to that say like, it's so hard. You have to eat and breathe and sleep this brand. It's an uphill battle. They would still do it again and again and again. And even if their business, the first one fails, they will do a second, a third, a fourth. So it's funny, even some of the more cautious or cautionary entrepreneurs I talk to, when asked if they would do it again, they're like, yeah, absolutely. And so it's this funny relationship that people have to doing it. And it's almost like it is really risky, but the rewards are so great when they do hit and when they do land that you just have to put all your eggs in a basket and you have to go for it.
Yep, I totally agree.
Yeah. Which I want to know, and I have a lot of my questions are two-part questions.
Totally fine.
That is something I've realized. I'll ask someone a question and then they're like, okay, well, you kind of said two things. So there we go. That's my thing. I want to know how you met your work wife, Lindsay, and which business you started first.
Okay, so I met Lindsay, actually, she makes fun of me all the time for this. She'll say I was an Instagram like fangirl of hers. So her and I both did the Disney College program. So we both worked at Disney World, but at different times. And we had
what's the Disney College program?
So the Disney College program, when you're at school and in college, you're able to apply for this internship program with the Walt Disney Company, where you can either work for them out in California at Disneyland, or you can work at Disney World. And it's for the span of a semester. So depending on, there's like two lengths of the program. Either it's like, I want to say around 4 months or so, or you can do the extended version, which was like 8 months roughly. And when you apply, you're able to get internship credit through your university, depending on obviously what your major was or anything like that. I know some people just wanted to do the program and work for Disney regardless of if they would get college credit because of, the ability to work for such a huge company. And I was one of those people that was like, I don't care if I get credit. I did end up getting credit for it, but I wanted to do it anyway because I just grew up on Disney. Like, I love Disney so much. Like, all my memories as a kid were there. And I was like, I just feel like I should work there. So when they had the college opportunity, it was a paid internship where you worked there, and usually you were in the parks, and there was like a variety of jobs that you could do. You could be working the attractions. You could be like a character attendant, like someone who kind of like helps, if the characters have like meet and greets. You could be in merchandise, you could be custodial, you could be a lifeguard, you could do like, there's so many different things. Some people did food, and they typically, I feel like, put you in a role that's like similar to your past experience. So her and I both actually have a similar trajectory in applying for the program because we both applied earlier on in college and got declined. And because it was quite a competitive program, I would say, when we first applied. It still was the second time, but I think we were more prepared the second time because you have to take like an online quiz sort of and answer a bunch of questions, and they want to see like how you would handle certain situations and things like that. So that's where I failed the first time. It was like, it's called a web-based interview, which is literally a questionnaire. And so we both didn't get in the first try, and then we got in both our senior years of college. So we prolonged graduating from college because we so badly wanted to do this program. So she ended up going in. So you could either go the fall semester or the spring semester. She did fall, which she was there over the holidays, and I did spring, but she extended hers into spring for a little bit. So I think I had crossed her path maybe once or twice, but never met her in person. I think I did meet her in person, but like didn't know it was her. And she was best friends with someone I worked with at the time. She worked in attractions. Have you been to Disney?
Yeah.
Okay, so she worked on the Jungle Cruise, and she also did Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And I worked in the confectionery on Main Street making like apples and Rice Krispie treats and all the sugary things. And I worked with somebody that knew her, and they were like really close friends. And I remember finding, because he would post her in pictures and stuff, and I think I clicked on her profile, and she started like, she had an Instagram aesthetic. I feel like before an aesthetic was like a real thing. Was doing it. Right. This was back in 2016 or 20. Oh, wow, in 2016 she was doing it. And I remember following her. I was like, wow, she has like such a cool account. Like, I kind of want to like make my account look like that, or like be more, aesthetically,
Mindful or
yes, right.
artistic. Yeah.
Or like have a, I feel like an overall theme in terms of like, does it reflect like what I do on a daily basis? Do I like it? Are the pictures,
Hmm.
reflective of who I am? And I think we started chatting. Um, I followed her and she didn't follow me back for like a while. And then I think we came on common terms because we started talking about guys that we were talking to that had the same name and looked similar. So it was very weird. And then we kind of like just started being friends from there. And then we would talk about like the small shop community that and what we were seeing. And we were like, like we're both really creative people. Like I feel like we can do this. So I did that business first. And we started that back in 2018, in May of 2018. So we've been doing it for about 2.5 years now. But yeah, I
And
met
that's
her over
the
Instagram.
it's called My Oh My, right?
Yep, my supply co,
I love it.
which is
Where
her. She came up with the name.
is she from? New Jersey as well?
She's from New York. She lives in New York State.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys get to like hang out a lot or
Yeah, we see each other probably at minimum like once a week.
oh nice. So you're
And
close enough to hang out.
yeah, we live about like 45, 50 minutes from each other. So it's like in the car, I feel like 50 minutes kind of goes by, like if you put a podcast on or something. So we're
Like
not far.
everybody listening to this, put this
Yes.
podcast on when you're in the car.
That's the best time to listen because you kind of just like, you have nowhere to, like, you have nothing to do. You have to sit there and you just soak it in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just feels like you're listening to your friends
And
chat
you're
and
not
have a
like alone in the
conversation.
car. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so how did Lindsay come up with My Oh My Supply Co?
I think she was coming up with different words because we wanted it to be like heavily Disney influenced. So she was trying to come up with words that were like relative to Disney things, but weren't like super Disney, like kind of low key, not like, oh, like Mickey and Fred, like, you know what I mean? Not something so blatantly obvious like that.
Hmm.
Because
You
we
don't need
knew,
you don't need Walt Disney coming after you for
right. No,
licensing or otherwise. Yeah.
absolutely not. So we were kind of like throwing around words and things that we thought were like related to like kind of Disney things, but also we knew we didn't want to just do like Disney inspired type of things. We wanted to do like pop culture and movies and TV shows and whatever was on our minds. So we didn't want to like pigeonhole ourselves entirely into like a name that was just not going to grow with us. So I think she got lyrics out of like Kiss the Girl from Little Mermaid. And she was like, oh, I kind of like the My Oh My thing. She's like, what if we did that? Because it's kind of like balanced in words. And then like we can put Supply Co. And then like, honestly, I want to say like a month or two after we picked the name, we realized that like the acronym was Moms Co. Like it was an acronym we could like actually use. And then we were like, oh, that's so funny that like that's the acronym for it because we never had thought about it at first when we picked it. So now we just kind of like we call it Mom's Co. Like that's just like what it is. But yeah,
It's also like a moniker that can kind of grow with you too. Mom's Co.
yeah, it can. And also I think like I mean we look at ourselves as like even though we don't have kids, we're like such moms. And like we're the moms of our business. So it's kind of like it
Yeah, it's your
works.
baby.
Yeah.
That's so funny that you said you're moms without kids because my best friend and I call each other mama. Because I mean, I don't know if we're like traditional moms, but we like are obsessed with taking care of people and just kind of like being there for each other as well. And we call ourselves moms without kids all the time. And we just call each other mama. And like one time I was on the phone with her and I was like, hey, mama, how are you? And we were chatting. And I'm like, okay, love you. Bye. And a friend of mine that I was having coffee with was like, you talk to your mom like that? And I was like, oh, those are my mom. This is my best friend. And they were like, okay. I don't know if I get it,
I feel
but
like that's like a normal, I mean, to me, that's like a normal friendship to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, I feel like when women are waiting to have kids later, or wanting to start businesses, like it's just, but you still kind of have these like quote unquote mom tendencies, or you're almost of like mom age.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly. I mean, my mom had two, almost three kids by my age. So it's like this funny thing where you're like, yeah, I'm kind of like doing mom stuff, but like I don't have kids.
Yeah. I
I'm like,
think I've thought about that too. I'm like, I feel like there's got to be other people out there and like maybe you're one of these people, but I just don't feel the age that I am like at all. Not that I'm like old, but it's like socially like I feel like assumed or expected of you to kind of like, oh, and when you're younger, like, oh, I'm gonna be married at like 25 and I'm gonna be a mom at like 26 or 27 and I'm gonna do all of these things. And then like when you actually get to that age, you're kind of like, oh, like I don't really feel any different than I did when I was like 21 or 19, or I still feel like I'm not like too young to be doing those things. Not
totally.
that there's like a set age you should be, but like I think what matters is like maybe not like the number or age that you are, but more like I don't feel like I'm at that point. So I don't know. I'm always like I'll be the mom to like my dogs and stuff, and that's where I'm at. But I just don't feel old enough, like truthfully, to be doing that. I don't know. Like I'm like
Yeah.
I kind of like being independent. I like doing all of these things, but it's interesting when I feel like the world kind of like expects you to do those kinds of things and you're not really.
Hmm.
um I mean, especially because you're married, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like I don't know if you probably got that question before, like, oh, are you going to get married, like, when are you going to get married, like when are you going to have kids or any of those things, and it's kind of like, well, like I don't know, like I still feel like I'm 15 years old.
Yeah, well, and it's also like fuck off. Like,
Right,
and you're like,
yeah,
I can't say that. I know you're just like wanting to know where I'm at, and so that's
yeah.
how you're asking.
Hmm.
But at some point you're like, I'm just living my life.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
just
that
chilling.
mentality I've also seen with owning a business too. Like, especially the older generations, like my aunts, my uncles, or like my parents' friends, or anything like that. Like, they almost don't get like what I do. Or they're like, wait, what are you doing? And I'm like, okay, like this is my business. So like, are you like, so you're like allowed to do that, or like you're doing this because like whatever. Oh, so you don't have like a real job. And I'm like, okay, but it is a real job.
It's way more than a real job.
I'm like,
It's like,
I'm every department. Like, you have human resources, you have like marketing, you have PR, you have customer service. Like, they are me. Like, I don't have anybody to do that. And people are like, oh, so you like work in your pajamas and you like work from home and that's so great. You make your own hours. I'm like, well, yeah, like it's great, but like, it's also like my business partner Lindsay always says, she's like, I work 9 to 9. They're like, oh, like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. She's like, no, 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. Like it never ends. Like the grind never stops. Like there's
yeah, I was
never
gonna
a
say,
problem,
like, you make your own hours, which is 24/7.
but you can't turn it off either. Cause I think like, especially when you do something more artistic or a business that you run, like your mind is constantly going and you're thinking of new things and you're like, oh, well, it's like 8 p.m. and I like have this idea and I got to like roll with it now. Cause if I wait until like I'm in normal working hours, I'm never going to remember what it is. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I honestly, I mean, things are really changing right now. I mean, with the current state of the pandemic and the election and how people work and everything. And I
mhm.
also think there's going to be quite a big shift generationally because things just move so damn fast with the internet, and because younger generations are so much more proficient at it than older generations, that like it's almost like you're living in two different worlds, like my little brother just started college, and I mean, it's like the stuff that they're like, they live in a different world almost than even like my parents, and it's funny to straddle those two kinds of worlds, where I like definitely get what he's doing and what he's like got going on, and it's only like the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean? Like when he was on TikTok before everyone knew about TikTok, I was like, you're weird. And it's like, oh shit. Now I'm like scrambling to get on TikTok and like make some cool shit. And my parents then think I'm just playing around on the internet and like my little brother. And it's this very funny thing that I think is about ready to flip or shift. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can see that there's some really big, I like to call it cosmic energy at play that's just flipping everything on its head. And um, like my mom was even saying, you know, I feel sad that like your brother has to be online at school and like there's projects due on Saturdays and Sundays now, like and evenings and stuff because it's online. It could be all the time. And I said, yeah, I understand that that mentality is different than your mentality, but it's the way the world works. You know, it's actually preparing him very well for the fact that like you don't just work between the hours of 9 and 5 and then you leave your job and you leave it behind and you go eat dinner with your family, and then on the weekends you're just like going to soccer practices and birthday parties and church or whatever, and you're not thinking about work. That's just, especially even if you are working in corporate America and you're trying to be successful in corporate America, that doesn't cut it. It just doesn't. But I think it's it's kind of a cool thing. I know right now I think it's kind of shifting. It's just like there's a lot being thrown at people with working from home, working remotely, um, everything being pretty digital right now. I think it will calm down and things will even back out a little bit. But I do think it allows you the kind of time and space to like be your own boss, freelance if you need, like you said, to make have some health benefits and have a little bit more of a steady stream of income. But it's like everyone I feel like is basically going to business school, like, but creating their own businesses, you know, instead of paying to get MBAs and like getting into a lot of student debt. And I just think the knowledge, the amount of knowledge that everyone is getting that wouldn't have had access to go to get their MBA or even go to undergrad, like you're going to have this new generation of people that just like thinks about things almost in like a 360 circle, and like the world is going to be a better place for it.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder, I also have a younger brother. He's a senior in college now. So he's like 5 years younger than me. And I do totally agree with you, feeling like the bridge between two worlds. And I'm like, I'm such an old soul, and like I get like a lot of where my parents are coming from, but I also get like the younger um mindset, because it's kind of like when you're in the middle of it, you like understand those two kinds of things. And I think what I mean personally would love to see change in the corporate world or the business world or people who go to college, because I don't think you necessarily, although I have my degree and like I'm grateful I have it, I don't think that it necessarily taught me like in the way of which I work now. Of course, the journalism and, you know, learning grammar and correct, you know, things like that have helped me in working for BuzzFeed. Um, I find that there's so many things that you don't learn in college that I feel like would be so much more useful, like how to construct a good email, because I think a lot of people don't know how to do that. I think a class on finances, like how to pick a good credit card, or how to, like, these are just things that like no one prepares you for. And when you leave, you're kind of just like, oh shit, like I know nothing. And everything I know about my business now is because of the like the internships that I had, it wasn't because of school. Like I don't feel like anything I learned in school, like I did not even major in business or anything like that. Whatever I learned like was really coming from a marketing and PR place that I learned from working in marketing PR, and I got that job not having any marketing and PR experience. So what I would like to see is businesses be more open to hiring more interns, more people to work for them that don't have experience. Because one of the most frustrating things when I got out of school and I was trying to figure out what to do, entry level jobs were like, okay, looking for a minimum of 3 years experience. I'm like, okay, but this is an entry level job. Where do you think I'm going to get that experience? Like I
You're
gotta.
like, did you see the pay that you put up?
Yeah, and I think
Like,
a lot of people don't go into a field that they even studied. And no matter where you work, even if you majored in marketing and you go in a marketing role, like you still have to learn the ins and outs of that business you're working at. So, whatever you learn in school isn't necessarily always going to benefit you in life. And I think real work experience and like being hands-on with things is like where you learn the most. Like in that PR role, I was there for 6 months, and I think I've learned the most I ever have in my whole life than I did in that job. So, although mentally it wasn't a great space for me, but like educationally it was phenomenal, and I learned so much. And now I'm on the other side, especially with BuzzFeed, like people are pitching me ideas when I was the person at one point that was pitching writers the ideas or pitching them, products. Be like, are you working on this kind of story? And now I'm the one that kind of gets those. So I've seen both sides of it, which is a really cool, like full circle thing for me. But I would like to see, especially with this younger generation, and I know they've had a rough go at it with COVID kind of messing up their,
yeah.
school experience and the ability to have an internship, and a lot of them got canceled. And I feel bad because I hope that the if a lot of them are trying to go into corporate America or a normal air quotations 9 to 5 job, that they're able to find something that understands like the way the world is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I
Sorry
think
for that tangent.
no, this is what the podcast is. Tangents are welcome and happy. I mean, it's like if we were just sitting here and playing 20 questions, it would be like people would fall asleep at the wheel, and we're not trying to have our listeners crash and burn. It's also like, the like what you touched on with COVID throwing a wrench in a lot of these young people's like school. And like my brother had to, starting college was like very different than when I got to experience like leaving and going to college. But I weirdly think I just feel really optimistic about it. And I know that seems a little contrary to maybe the popular opinion, because obviously what's happening is really sad, and there's a lot of compassion I have for healthcare workers and everyone involved, and it is a really scary time. And but the way in which people are being forced to connect to each other, I think, is a really good thing. I think that the kind of atmosphere of knowing that you have to turn in a test on a Saturday or do a paper, that's due on a Wednesday night or a Friday night or something like that, does hopefully help prepare them for the way that things work, and that you do kind of have to just like all hands on deck. Like, because school, very much traditional school, prepares you for corporate America. I mean, that's just like the structure is there. And that is, I think you also kind of touched on that when you switched your English degree and saying like the school system was kind of not what you thought it was or what it used to be. And I'm really excited about the shakeup because I never was in love with traditional school, or certainly not the structure of corporate America. And that had its own pitfalls for me because like I actually probably could have had a lot of good roles in corporate America that I would have fit well into, but I completely like annexed it from my life. I was like, absolutely not. I will do anything besides work at a desk from 9 to 5. And I had this very kind of like anarchy relationship with it. So I'm kind of excited to see all of the like new possibilities that are coming out of it, and like the way that even you're able to have transitioned from freelance to a full-time position with BuzzFeed, but you're still able to run your business. So you just like you have stuff that's really yours, so you don't feel like you're just like a cog in the machine.
Right. I think it's for people who I think do the kinds of things that we do, it's like you said, it's a very much so innate, like a calling or like a feeling like I have to do this, or you just like, I also think I'm like a very like alpha, I need to be in control of my life person. So I think knowing that at the end of the day, like you can make those choices, you can choose what you want to do, you can choose to forego like what is, I think, like socially acceptable or normal.
Okay, so I'm making this podcast on anchor.fm because A, it's free. B, it lets you edit everything in the app on the website. So if I'm on the go, I can literally pull up the app, move around segments, listen to how the order sounds, add music. I can even add different pictures for each episode. And then when I'm done, oh my gosh, it uploads to Spotify, Apple, Google, 5 or 6 others, all for me. So I don't have to do it. It's literally amazing. Download the app or go to anchor.fm to start your podcast now, because we need more podcasts out there. We need more storytellers. Oh, and another cool thing is that you can get paid from sponsorships, and it helps me so that I can be able to go out there and find amazing guests to connect and talk to that you guys can listen to. So download the app or go to anchor.fm right now.
And realize that like you can still thrive and still enjoy it is important. And I'm with you on seeing like I think the change for sure, because I think this year, if anything else, I mean, I I applaud, I think, your outlook on it and looking at it positively, because like you don't have to always like you don't have to look at things negatively like because you're supposed to. And I think this has been a very reflective year for a lot of people, in personally self-reflecting and also outwardly self-reflecting. So I'm curious to see that transition, because we really are the generation in that transitional period. So, I mean, we're going to see it firsthand, because we were the first generation that didn't grow up with social media. It came later for us. That's something that me and my business partner, Lindsay, talk about always. And we just actually did a podcast on it. I don't know if you've watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix. And that was kind of what we like kind of were talking about. And we're like, it's such an interesting thing knowing that our younger siblings in that generation grew up only with that, and we grew up halfsies with it, sort of.
We grew up with like the internet being like the coolest new thing.
Oh yeah, or you had to like no one could be on the phone when you were going on the computer, otherwise like
which already makes us sound like grandparents. Like I think that's why we have this funny, like almost everyone I talk to has this dual feeling of like being old and young, where you're like, I feel like a mom or a grandma or an old lady, and I also feel like a teenager. Like,
yeah,
there's this really interesting thing that is like happening where you're like, I really straddle these two worlds. And it's like, because the world is moving so fast, that when you say you had to like wait to use the computer and that you couldn't be on the phone while you were using the computer, or dial up happened, like you sound ancient.
Yeah, or like a landline. Like it was the coolest thing when you got like a phone in your room, and it was like nobody even has like landlines anymore or anything like that. So it's funny because we've really grown with technology in like the world, whereas I think the generations above us like had to embrace it more so. Kind of like how we have to embrace TikTok a little bit because we didn't like
Totally.
grow with it.
Mhm.
And but the younger generation, like they just have it already. Like
Oh yeah,
they know
they just
nothing
like get
else.
it.
Yeah, they know
Mhm.
nothing else. And for us, it's like, oh, we've like grown with the times because it's like we didn't have it and then we had it, but like we know how to use it because like we've embraced it at that time it came out, as opposed to like our parents were like, I haven't had this for like 50 years, like now I got to figure this out. So I mean that's going to be us one day with like new stuff, but technology is like a huge thing and it really just fuels the world now.
Yeah. It also allows for connections like these, which is really beautiful too, like
Yes.
for every moment that I get overwhelmed and I feel like I'm wearing too many hats, like you said, being PR, head of marketing, head of growth, head of finance, trying to figure out the next blah, 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 blah. For every moment I have like that, there's moments like these where I meet people and I get to connect with them and talk to them. And it makes it all worth it because, like, how would I have met you otherwise? How would I be getting to talk to you and learn from you? And it's it's like absolutely so cool. Like if you were to describe this situation, that I met you through something in my hand and then now we are able to see each other and speak to each other over states and time zones and all of these things, it would sound like magic.
Right.
It would sound like
Mm-hmm.
Harry Potter. And so when I think about it like that, I get really excited because then I'm like, okay, you know what? It's all gravy. Like it's all cool and good. And all the other things that stress me out is me stressing myself out, you
I
know?
stress myself out so much. So
Okay, perfect segue. What's your birthday? What's your sign?
I'm a Capricorn. I am. Are you a Capricorn?
I'm a Virgo, so
Oh,
earth
okay.
signs.
Oh, well, we
Yeah.
get along. We get along well.
Yes.
Um,
And that means you're a workaholic. So,
I oh gosh, everything they say about Capricorns is literally me. I'm very into my birth chart. Um, and I know I oh my God, I love astrology.
do you know your moon sign and your rising?
My rising is a Leo, which makes total sense for me, and my moon is a Pisces.
Oh,
Yeah, so I feel like I've always like I'm an introverted extrovert. Like when I want to engage with people, like I'm on. Like I can do it. But like more than half the time I'm like I just don't want to see the world. Like I just want to stay home and like not do anything. And I'm a very like I feel like sensitive person. Very like Pisces-esque in terms of being
like your internal life is very Pisces.
yeah, I'm like kind of quiet. Although I don't seem that way right now, but I do have to like open up to people, but I also love being like a clown
Mhm.
outwardly to people. Like I love being like the class clown sort of. So I feel like a Leo and Pisces is a very weird balance for me, but
Totally.
it makes sense.
That's good. Yeah, I tend to um, interview a lot of earth signs. I'm just attracted to other earth signs. I think it has a lot to do with being really grounded, but at the same time, like very practical, very driven, but at the same time, very creative and very, um, I don't know if intuitive is the right word for everyone, but it's like this practical, creative intuition that really connects,
Yeah.
like, seems to be like a through line with the people that I talk to. Cause it's like there's very creative people that are really like wacky and creative and like have this artistic energy that seems wild and almost like I'm attracted to it, but I don't have that. Like my version of creativity and artistry and how I present that is like very grounded. It's very practical. Like I have a schedule. I like know what my day looks like. I
I feel like earth signs are very like no bullshit people. Like we're very just like, okay, like let's like we appreciate like loyalty and being able to trust people, and we just don't like all of the fluff. I feel like it comes in, I think, and obviously probably other parts of people's birth charts. I feel like that's why we're probably so creative and things like that. But I think earth signs like really, like you said, like very driven, very like almost serious, but like if you want to excel at things, like I think you have to have that. And it's funny that you say a lot of the people you interview are earth signs, because like I said, I mean, we're just very no bullshit people. Like if I want to get something done, like I have to work at it. And but like I can also have fun doing it, which I think would come in at other points probably. I mean, everything that happens with Capricorns that they say about us is like it's never like the most positive thing. Like it's always like takes life too seriously, like if you waste my time, like I'm done with you. So I mean, which is true, but um
It
obviously
my
it's not your whole identity, but like it makes
Sure,
up a big part
sure.
of it, and I think it keeps you grounded in like achieving things.
Yeah, my dad is a Capricorn, and it's funny because he he's like my best friend, so we're very similar. Um, but he's a very serious person, but loves to joke around. But the funny thing that I've noticed about him is that his jokes are kind of only funny to him. Like other people are sort of like like they don't know to laugh or be offended, and he's like, "Nah, I'm just kidding." But like it's funny to see that like he is joking, but the joke is almost serious in nature, or like it's a little on the nose. And so it's kind of like, did he just say that? And it's funny that you said that a lot of the stereotypes of being a Capricorn are that they're like not very positive or lighthearted and all these things, because I think it's funny that like when a Capricorn feels like they're being lighthearted, like other people are like, oh, they just saw right through me.
I
You know?
mean, I'm like such a sarcastic asshole, like in terms of like humor. Um, and I feel like that's also probably like once again, like also possibly a generational thing. Like I feel like a lot of like my friends who are also like millennials, like that's just we just like roast ourselves or like roast each other, and
Mhm.
obviously within reason, but yeah, no, I know I'm a very serious person, like, and I give myself anxiety over it, like aside from the fact that I actually have anxiety. I definitely like
That is also such an earth sign thing. Oh my God, I have this post on Instagram I put up that was these like vintage posters. Um, and I did all four of the elements, like, and what they would be. And the earth sign poster that I like put up was I'll have a cup of anxiety tea this morning. Or
like anxiety with a side of anxiety, like that's just
it's such
life.
a, yeah, it's like, I don't know why, but earth signs can't
We
help but
can't be
just like
like,
worry.
oh my god, like because we're so serious. I feel like we're so like I want to get this done. Like I can't, like I won't be relieved until it's done, and even when it's done, I'm like anxious about the next thing I
The
have to
next,
do because I'm like there's something else now.
yeah. I also think, and this is where I get really deep into this stuff, I also think I really, when I read people's charts or do people's charts, I do focus on the element of their sun sign, because I really think that there's a lot of knowledge in there. And I think earth signs have a lot of anxiety, because I also really, because the earth is like actually hurting. And I just feel like there's so many environmental issues right now that like it's almost on another level that like we can't even comprehend. Like there's a connectedness to the earth that we feel, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that like the status of the physical earth and how it's doing is really in peril, and it's kind of like something that shakes us to our core, which is I think also why a lot of earth signs right now are doing, creating, going, making businesses. And that's my belief. But I just feel like we're like, you know what? I don't know what's happening with the earth and with the environment, and I can't control it. So I'm just going to control all these other things, and I'm just going to just keep doing shit because I don't know how to fix the like bigger issue.
Sometimes I feel like personally, and I would love to know if you feel this way, but like sometimes I feel like I thrive in panic. Like although like in like being in the thick of the panic is like not fun, or like the anxiety or whatever, but sometimes I feel like that's when I'm the most productive, because um it's like make or break time. Like it's like, okay, I have this pressure on me, like I have to get it done. Like, and I feel like we always get it done, but it's like you thrive even more. Although like we don't like the energy, I feel like we thrive in it.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Like my husband is a fire sign, and he like is a doer. Like he's very action based, and absolutely every single moment of every day, he's like got something to execute on, whether that's has to do with exercise or business or like a home project or going to see someone. Like he has something that he's executing on. And I'm a doer as well, but my process looks very different from his. And it's very much just like what you said. It's kind of like I'm chilling, I'm like researching somebody I'm going to interview like casually, and, you know, I'm into their vibe and I kind of get it. And then an hour before the podcast is about to tape, I'm like crunch writing down all these questions, and I'm like doing all this stuff, and I'm like really crazy.
We're
But
like
like
down to like the
to
minutes.
the wire.
Yes. Yep.
But I like it. I mean, I don't mean that in a procrastinating way, because it's like I've been looking at your Instagram for weeks now, you know? I've been like, I really like this girl's vibe. I like her stuff. Like, and then, you know, there's this whole thing that happens. But then for some reason, the energy that's created when you're down to the wire, when you have pressure on you, like I come up with my best ideas, or I like think in a frenetic way that like almost comes up with like some really cool shit. So I totally resonate with like the pressure
Maybe
being
it's like
something.
fulfilling. Maybe it's like fulfilling to know that you can like excel through pressure. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it makes it like the victory in whatever you're doing, or like you fix it, like finalizing something like sweeter, because you're like, oh, well, like this came out bomb or like really good. And like I panicked for what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just like thriving on the fact that you were able to like do something like really great and under pressure, you know?
Yeah. Well, the other day, I literally at the end of the day was doing like a victory dance because I had gotten everything done. Like dishes, trash went out to the sidewalk at the right, you know, I didn't miss it this week, trash day. I like taped 2 podcasts. I put out all my content, like on my content calendar at the right time. I had a couple meetings about some other freelance stuff. And I literally was like doing like the Rocky, like victory dance around the house. And my husband was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I just crushed it. I'm so happy. Everything's done. I'm a boss bitch. I'm a superwoman. And he was like, watching you do all of that was scary.
It was like stressful to watch.
Yeah, he was like, none of that looked easy or good. Like he was laughing
enjoyable.
at me. Yeah, exactly. He was like, I thought I was going to have to send you to a home. And I was like, oh, well, I feel accomplished.
That's what it is. I'm telling you.
I did it. Okay, so I want to tell everyone where they can find you on all of the many amazing places they can find you. And then I also want to I want to tell you about your North node. Do you know about the nodes in your birth chart? Okay,
No.
I'm going to teach you a little bit about nodes, which is not dirty. And then I want to know, before you tell us like where people can find you, I wanted to know if you had some like amazing apps that you use for creating all of your content, because I think your stuff is beautiful. I love all of you have a nice plethora too of like styles. Sometimes you'll have like a really beautiful picture with a really nice like quote on it, but other times you have like stuff that looks like a scrapbook, and you have a lot of different but it's all very much under your brand. So I wanted to know some of your like top apps for
Oh,
creating all that.
yeah, me grabbing my phone so I can tell you if I forget any. Um, so my favorite app overall for being like someone who loves to get shit done is I like Planoly for planning out my feed. Uh, it's Planoly. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Planoly, however you say it. So I plan out my feed because I like to know what it's going to look like cohesively. Sometimes I'll post things randomly, but I still have to check like if it works in the feed. I edit everything for the most part on Lightroom. I use presets on a lot of my photos, but you can find so many. Like I've accumulated so many over the years, and then kind of just like adjusted them to like fix the colors or something in it that I'm like, oh, if I want it to be like on the pinkier side, which tends to be like what I gravitate towards, I'll edit it that way. But you can find so many on like Etsy and stuff and buy people's presets. I love the app Color Story.
I love Color
I
Story.
love Color Story for like overlays or like cool like light flecks of things. I don't know. I also really love the Tezza app, Tezza. She is like a influencer creator person. She has a very cool Instagram account, but she has an app that actually is free, and then you can also pay for like more upgrades on it, but she already has like presets in there that you can use all the time, kind of like Visco or VSCO. And she has like really cool, like if you can also edit videos in there, so if you want like cool like dusty vintage film looking things. For collagey type of stuff that I tend to do, I love PixArt, Picsart. I also use Pic Collage. And then honestly, a lot of it I do on Photoshop Mix, which is I believe it's a free app, or at least when I downloaded it, it was free. It's a much easier, and you can get it on your phone or your iPad or tablet. And it's way easier to use than Photoshop. Like I'm not like a Photoshop wizard at all. And Photoshop Mix is more, I feel like, for like collaging and things like that. So it's much easier to navigate as an app.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like any other app that I use the most is DoorDash. No.
Like my essential app to creation
For
is
food.
DoorDash.
Yes.
That's how I get all my stuff done. So are you doing most of your content creation from your phone?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it's from my
Amazing.
phone, and I do use my iPad for quite a lot. Like, so when I share, I know I have like a saved highlight on my page that is like collages and stuff. That I'm doing more on my iPad, but then like I'll pull it into the apps on my phone and still add more things to it. So, PixArt has really good like collagey things that I tend to pull from a lot, but for the most part, like I do a lot of it off of my phone.
That's amazing. I mean, I always want to ask people that just because I do most of it on my phone as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then you see some, your stuff is so good that I'm like, okay, should I be doing this on Photoshop on my computer and like having more high tech stuff? Do I need to go buy 100 things like my?
No, I mean, I love my iPad because a lot of like the design work and stuff we do for our business is on Procreate.
Mhm.
And we draw and use like the Apple Pencil, which is like the best thing ever. But I use my iPad a lot, but it's not like it can't be done on my phone. I just do it on my iPad sometimes because it's like a bigger screen for me to look at. But yeah, everything you can like do on your phone.
I love that. Okay, so let's tell people where they can find you before we get into this North Node stuff? Because that's probably going to be more interesting for you and me. But I want people to be able to find you on all of your handles. So yeah, where can people find you, and do you want them to kind of like subscribe or go? Like, where should we send them?
So I love like my personal account, I feel like is like my main, like where I love to be. My personal Instagram is Ali Fass, ALIFACC. And then in there, actually, like in my bio, I have so many of the other pages that I run or am a part of on there. So my business is on there, my supply co. So you can like find the link in my bio for that, or the handle. The handle for my podcast is in there, which is just Girls Talk Too Much Pod. And then I also have my portfolio Instagram where I'll post more of like the stuff you're talking about, which is like I do a lot of like handwritten like font work, or collages, or just illustration work that I'll do. And that one is AMF_works, but that's also in my bio. And then if anybody wants to like read any of my BuzzFeed stuff, I have a link in my bio to like a almost like a link tree sort of thing. And I have my BuzzFeed like portfolio there. So if you ever want to read any of my articles, or anyone who's listening to check out, I work in the shopping section. So if you're a big shopper or anything like that, that's what I'm usually writing about. But yeah, it's pretty much all in my bio. So if you find my personal account, then you'll find everything else.
Yeah, well, that's how I found you. And I was like, holy shit, this girl is awesome. And she has so much going on. So it's ALIFACC on Instagram. And then in her bio, she's got all of her other businesses. And we haven't even gotten to talk about your podcast yet.
Oh, yes, my podcast.
So your podcast is also with your work wife, Lindsay.
Yes.
When did you start that, and what was the birth of that? Like, where did that idea come from?
So once again, she came up with the name. She's like great at coming up with names. She and I were actually interviewed on one of her friends' podcasts, and we had never been like on a podcast or whatever, but we're big podcast listeners. Like I have like a slew of podcasts that I love listening to. And I think being on her friend's podcast and being interviewed, we're like, oh, this is like a really cool and fun space to kind of connect with people further, to expand our brand and our reach to other people, or creating more of like a community atmosphere. Because obviously if people follow us on, our business or our Instagram, you're only getting like so much of our lives. Like we're not really putting too much of our personal lives or like our opinions on there, anything like that. And I think when you're building a brand, like one of the most important things is to kind of try to touch as many outlets that you can, where you feel like you can connect with people even more so, because not everybody uses Instagram, not everybody uses Facebook or Twitter or podcasts, or they do a combination of different things. So I think we decided that we really loved being able to just have like an open forum of talking, because we always said, and we still like, we're friends and we work together, and we always have this like banter and like really deep conversations that we're like, I wish someone was recording this, like as we're saying this, because I think podcasts are such a great way, like you said, to feel like you're in a space with somebody else and be like, okay, they get it. Like they get, what I'm talking about, or I want to learn something, or, I just need someone to give me the current events in like the funniest way possible. And we were just like, I think we should start this. And I think we started it, we've had it for 2 years at this point, but we started it probably like 5 or 6 months after we started our business. So it was like a little bit of time before we decided to like hop into that, because we wanted to make sure that like the business was like doing well and succeeding, and not just like throwing another thing onto the pile of like anxiety.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started that, and we've been doing it now. And I will say, like, it's so fun to do, but it is very hard to come up with topics sometimes. And you can only, I feel like, talk. It's hard also to talk about yourself sometimes. Like, when you're like, okay, like, I want to talk about this and I want to be as authentic as I can be. But, you definitely open yourself, I feel like, to more like self criticism, because you're like, oh, so I say like every other word and I sound like this and I do this and I do that. But I think if you like consuming podcasts and you like hearing about other people's lives, or you like getting people's opinions or learning about something new, I think they're so great. So we kind of like started it because we liked how it felt when we were talking with her friend on her podcast, and we were like, this is our lives every day, we talk to each other all the time, like we should just record it.
Yeah.
So we did, and we've been doing it now. We were doing 2 episodes a week at one point, but we're back to doing 1 just because we're so busy.
Yeah, 2 is a lot.
Yeah, and we also have like a Patreon where we'll record like extra episodes. But
well,
I feel
if you ever need a guest, I'm happy to be on it. Or you know what I've really been wanting to do, and we can talk more about this later, but is to do like a podcast swap. I've seen a couple of people do that, like where instead of a blog swap, they do, and you'll like be on it together, but basically the other person like facilitates it. So I've been really thinking about doing that too. So you're one of the few people that also has a podcast that I've.
No, that's super cool. I feel like I don't know like other people who podcast, although I feel like people as of like the past year have been coming out with podcasts more. It's definitely like blown up, which I'm like happy about, because it's almost like listening to like an audiobook or something. I feel like it's a lost art to like, it's almost like listening to the radio or anything like that, which people have just like totally written off.
Yeah.
But it's coming back with podcasts, which I think is really great, and also creates like a sense of community and connectivity to other people. So yeah, I will definitely talk to you more about that.
Cool. Okay, really, really quick. When is so you're Capricorn, but what's your exact birthday?
January 9th.
And then what year?
1994.
Okay. So oh my gosh, this is so crazy. So your North Node is in Sagittarius.
Okay.
I'm going to read a little bit about it.
I know my Venus is in Sagittarius as well.
Ooh.
Which is very spot on for me.
My Venus is in Scorpio, and it's also very spot on for me. I think that's another thing that people only know their sun sign, and really like your whole chart is what, tells a lot about you, and you need the whole chart to like know stuff. So when people are like, I'm nothing like my sun sign, I'm like, yeah, but you probably haven't had your birth chart read. And if you've had it done, you might not have had it explained to you. It's almost like looking at a person, like one part of a person's body, and being like, I know what that person looks like. And you're like, hey, you got to like look at the full thing to know what's up. But so then the nodes are in your chart as well. But it's like a mathematical equation that's done in relationship to the moon and the sun. So it's like almost like if you were to do it like a triangle. So if the moon and the sun are here, then the center point between the two on the opposite horizon. And a lot of times it's in there, but a lot of astrologers don't necessarily talk about it. Or if you're looking at your own chart, you're like, I don't know what that little symbol is in the corner. So the way that it was described to me is that when you do that equation, it's basically like putting an invisible like arch or kind of slingshot across your birth chart. So your south node would be kind of where you are in your comfort zone or where you kind of started in life. And your north node is your destiny. So almost like your trajectory and where you should be going and things that you should be striving for to go towards. So the women that I interviewed on the episode before this were both also Sagittarius North Node women. And so some of the attributes are, this is hidden gifts and talents that you need to develop in your lifetime. And this is like the area of your destiny. Spontaneity, you need to be more spontaneous, developing a sense of freedom and adventure. Direct communication, free from censorship. So working on being really open and free flow with your ideas, because people need to hear them. And it's like very inspiring and things that people are just going to continue to drink up and consume. Spending time alone and in nature are two things that are like really nourishing for you and that you probably don't do enough of. And then one of the other attributes to develop for North Node in Sagittarius is intuitive listening. So hearing the meaning behind the words and like really letting your intuition drive not only your conversations, but how you like handle situations and stuff like that. Really trusting your gut instead of using your brain to get you there. And then it's just going to like light everything else on fire. And then the three of the things that are tendencies to leave behind for Sagittarius North Node people is let go of indecisiveness, saying what others want to hear instead of actually that kind of goes with the censorship thing. And then trusting others' perceptions instead of your own. So really trust your perception of things, that intuitive part, trust that over what other people think and feel and see.
I feel like it's funny because I feel like I'm thinking of myself in terms of how I am as a person and like in what direction I go. And I feel like that is pretty spot on for me in terms of like spontaneity and not sugarcoating what I'm saying because it's like going to necessarily like, I think it's hard to not want to like, for me personally, like feel like I need to tell people what they want to hear. I am a very like, I would say unfiltered when it comes to like saying how I feel, but it's like within reason. Like I won't, and it also depends on who it's to. Like I feel like to like my parents or whatever, like I'm very like free flowing with that. And it's obviously like a comfort level thing. So it's interesting to hear you say that because I think that is stuff that I know that I have to work on as well. So it's very intriguing to hear it from my birth chart.
Yeah. And the one of the things, this book that I read these from for people is it's called Astrology for the Soul. And it's from an astrologer named Jan Spiller. And the whole book is only on North Nodes because that's really how she was able to like help people and like facilitate their growth on a self-discovery level, but also on like a career level, things like that. And have her most impact was looking at the nodes instead of just the planetary alignments. And something, so she breaks it down really well in terms of what it means for being a Sagittarius North Node in terms of your talents and professions, your personality, your like, how your mind thinks, your reasoning, your logic, like she breaks it down really well. And one of the things I underlined that I thought was really interesting was that it says these folks are the happiest as well as the most financially successful when they use their talents to find solutions and help others. They can be involved in distributing ideas on a mass level or promoting a cause that they believe in.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So I always like to end or throw in some astrology there for my guests that are on here because it's something I study and research all day, every day. So
I love that. I love astrology.
yeah, anything on the path to self-discovery is A-okay in my book.
We always need self-reflection. And I think, too, it's like taking things also in stride, but in like with a grain of salt, too. Like people have to realize like how it's like, if like that's not me identically, I'm like, well, like I don't know if it's supposed to be like, but you can interpret it like how you feel like that may reflect who you are, or where you should go, or what you should be doing.
Yeah, if something strikes a chord in you and resonates with you, then go in that direction. Examine it, look at it. There's a reason that happened. It's not like anyone who's reading it is trying to like tell you who you are or like be invasive or, yeah, like you said, try to exactly paint the picture of course, there's all kinds of nuances that nobody can perfectly communicate, but it's a really cool thing to look at. And I think it's something that makes a lot of sense to me. So I always like to put a little bit of that in there.
I love that.
Ali, it was so wonderful to get to talk to you and learn about your businesses and what drives you. And I'm very excited for people to listen to you and connect with you and find you through this podcast and all of your other adventures. And thank you for being on Hippie in the City.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to listen to it and keep listening to your podcast too.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to yours as well. If you love our podcast as much as we love you, please subscribe. Spotify, you can hit the follow button, and on Apple Podcasts, you can click the 3 dots on the right and click subscribe. Because numbers matter, people. We live in the Matrix. Also, if you'd like to support us so we can aim to run ad-free episodes, go to anchor.fm/L-army/support. That's anchor.fm/ELLE-ARMY/SUPPORT. Peace and love.